This is reclaimed gymnasium flooring. And this is the genius who thought that this project was a good idea. And it ended up taking him almost 4 years to complete. But beating a nail gun repeatedly with a mallet is cheaper than a therapist. So who's the smart one here? Now let's jump back to over 3.5 years ago when I moved into this shop.
The first things on my list to get this place somewhat functional is I'm going to make a bunch of storage carts. They're going to fit at the base of my walls. I'm also going to clad the walls, cover up all this insulation and the ceilings too. Then I'm going to put something on the floor. I'm hoping hardwood flooring.
The walls and the ceilings got taken care of right away to make this place pretty enough to film in, but the floors, well, I decided to sit on that idea for a while because it's typically a pretty expensive and time-consuming project. While sitting on the idea, my wife reminded me of this reclaimed wood store in Baltimore called Brick and Board that I used to shop at when I was at my previous shop in Washington, D.C. She said I should check in with them to see if they still had the gym floors that I saw there a couple years ago. I said there's no way those are still there. It's been years. That flooring is long gone. Stop being such a stupid. Well, not long after that conversation, an auction popped up. Brick and Board. They were moving locations and selling off some material, including that same gym flooring that I had seen when I was there. I bid on it. I won it. And neither my wife or I brought up the conversation ever again. So, the next step was to find the largest box truck that I could legally drive, fill it with a totally legal weight of incredibly dense maple flooring, and then hit the open road with my fellow big rig boy, Cam.
Just hanging out here in Jersey. Fellow big rig boys, you know how it is, keeping America running. Big rig boys here. No, don't look at that little truck. We're big rig boys. Hey, bud. Yeah. Just keeping the world moving. Yeah. Nice sleeper cab. I'm gonna get one of those one day.
Getting it off the truck was yet another challenge. After breaking and then fixing the Bobcat twice during the process, I managed to get all the flooring off my big rig. So, cut to now, to 2 years later, and you can see the progress that I've made so far. The flooring that was outside the barn before is now inside the barn. This is 1-inch thick commercial grade maple flooring attached to 2x3 sleepers, which have rubber pads on them that sit on the concrete under the gym floor. And now I have thousands. To get the flooring out of the gym, they cut a big 5-foot grid in the floor and then remove the flooring in sheets. That's what I now have and need to disassemble before I bring the flooring upstairs and then reinstall it. Now, once the panels are disassembled, we're left with the decision. Normally, floorboards have a tongue on one end and a groove on the other, but in this case, many have been cut off when the grid was cut in the old gym. One option is to cut the ends square and then mill tongues and grooves into the ends of thousands of pieces of this flooring, or just cut them square and call it a day. And in a rare move for me, we took the easier option of just cutting them all square. The flooring is all brought upstairs, palletized, and allowed to acclimate for a couple of weeks until the moisture content readings have leveled off. After a little rearranging of the furniture, we can do the last bit of work that makes the flooring usable, addressing the long edges of each piece of flooring. This right here is decades of children's dead skin cells. Well, that and dirt and glitter and who knows what else. But I like to think it's mostly children's dead skin. But at least it's not hardened on there with decades-old varnish. Oh, it is. Well, that's fun. After some cleanup, the floor installation process can finally begin. Luckily, other than the material itself, it's a pretty typical floor install, except for this whole deal right here. Starting with the prep work, belt sanding the plywood to remove any imperfections, which is mostly just unevenness at the seams, but then there's also some Jackman-made imperfections that have accumulated over the past few years. The first 6 rows are attached with finish nails until there's room for the flooring stapler. And those first rows are also planed down in a rare moment for me, looking out for my future self, because a sander isn't going to fit down at the bottom of those sloped walls when I eventually want to refinish these floors. The install process is just a bit repetitive, but really wouldn't be that bad if I didn't have to play this game in my shop. But I just work one roll of paper at a time and then shift things around as needed. One of the tricks that I use is a big framing nail and a wooden wedge to close the gaps in seams where pieces are a bit warped. Another trick is using my boots as a tool. They aid in the alignment of the tongue and groove when you have a wop, a piece as warped as a Pringle. And then a trick that only works with Carolina boots, trust me, is using the boots as a clamp on a bowed piece. One end gets stapled in place, and then I apply downward pressure while I bend the piece into place with the mallet. And then my boot is able to hold it there until it gets stapled in place. Then when finishing up the end of the run, I mark pieces. No measuring, means no mistakes. And I also do this a handful of rows at a time to minimize the trips to the miter saw. A real floor installer would have the miter saw right down there on the floor, but I'm just an Instagram model who's installing flooring. Now that I'm out from under the slope of the wall, the main part of the floor is easy. Just a matter of staggering the seams, avoiding a stair-step pattern, H-joints, or lining up any joints within 6 inches or so. Now, just like I'm shifting tools and some other things around as I complete sections of the floor, I also create a place to stage the second half of the flooring. And that flooring is still downstairs, in panels. But while I've been working on installing the flooring, Mr. Mac developed a more efficient way to take the panels apart, which I will now walk you through so that when you buy sheets of reclaimed basketball flooring, you'll know the best way to take them apart.
So I take one of the 2x3s on edge and shove it under the end of one of the panels to prop it up. With that propped up in the air, I can beat it, and that will separate the 2x3 from the flooring just enough to fit the Sawzall blade in between the two. And a demo blade in the Sawzall slices the 2x3s right off. Saves quite a bit of work. Set the 2x3s aside, do a quick little sweep, then pull the next panel down. Rinse and repeat a few more times.
And with the remainder of the flooring upstairs acclimating, there's some places that need some special attention, including the door, the top of the stairs, under the wood rack, and later the plywood rack. I am now in the home stretch, which naturally means that my staple gun would break. I put out a call and was lucky enough to borrow a staple gun from a friend, which he hadn't used in 10 years and also didn't work, so I blocked his number and threw it away. Well, what do you know? Carolina was kind enough to send me a pair of staple guns. Oh, it's actually just their new style of boot called the staple gun. That's waterproof, electrical hazard rated, with an oil and slip resistant rubber outsole, and a carbon composite Moc Toe too. Well, I laced up my new boots, walked to the store to buy a new staple gun, and get back to work. And the rest of the install was straightforward. That is, until I ran out of room for the stapler to work, which is much earlier than normal, given the wonderful sloped wall. So I carefully marked out where the final row would land, and then I install from the wall out the same way that I started.
Love that. Everyone knows the rules.
Now, as hard of a project as that was, and as much as I enjoyed complaining about it, was the proverbial juice worth the squeeze? Yes? I think so. Although the whole thing was very unnecessary, I ended up with a more solid and resilient floor that looks much cooler, which makes me happy, and it looks sexier on camera. I helped save quite a bit of material from the landfill. The floor tells a really cool story, and this fancy new floor makes me a more desirable mate. Why don't we get out of here? Go back to my place. I'll show you my brand new reclaimed gymnasium basketball floor. Thank you, Carolina Shoe, for sponsoring this video. I spent a ton of time on my feet during this project, and as far as I'm concerned, the only way to do that is in a pair of Carolina Shoe work boots. They even gave me a code to share with you, good for 20% off all of my favorite work boots and accessories from them, including the brand new staple gun work boot and my favorite hat that holds pencils and other cargo too. And they're even generous enough that they're doing a giveaway to go along with this video. 5 people will be chosen to get their choice of a free pair of Carolina boots. Carolina Shoe, their boots are the best, they are the best. Check out all those details and any restrictions down below, including the code and link to save 20% off your next favorite pair of boots, and also the details for entering that giveaway for a free pair of boots. So thank you to Carolina Shoe, and thank you to you for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you back here on the next build. It's actually right there behind the camera. Thank you to Carolina Shoe